It's very hard to ideate on the computer with
Yeah.
softwares, and I believe ideas and visions are all born on the paper, and drawing on the iPad is simply to me it's an extension of that paper. What the
Mhm.
right proportion, how
You
much
do
detail
this,
you
like,
give that
remember, like,
exactly. We did
you
this to frame the buildings and
yes.
the art.
Uh-huh.
Having the developing the hand drawing skill can go a lot in someone's career.
And this is such a beautiful idea, Henry,
Mhm.
that you just shared. We are architects, right? So we are like designers. Why don't we become architects of our life? I'm wondering if it's golden retriever or Labrador.
Yeah, it's a golden retriever that I have
Oh, that's
next
my
to me.
dream dog. Oh. Well, hello, my dear creatives. And today we have such a special guest. It's Henry Gown. He's an architect. He's wearing so many hats. He's an architect. He's a teacher. He's an illustrator. He's a dad. And I'm just so excited to hit him with so many questions that I have in my mind about like the workflow of architect, the apps that he prefers. And yeah, I believe it's going to be a super insightful interview with lots of like value bombs, and be prepared for lots of insights. Hi, Henry.
Hi, it's
Welcome.
an honor to be here.
My question number one, it actually was inspired by your YouTube channel,
Mhm,
and your most popular video on YouTube is my four streams of income as an architectural designer.
mhm,
Uh, so, Henry, could you please share with us, like, maybe the main takeaways from that video so
mhm.
our viewers, they would be inspired to go and check it out? Because I believe how many, like, 500,000 of
Uh,
views on that video, something like a lot of.
yeah, I think it's surprisingly a lot for what my channel is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about I teach drawing, sketching,
Yeah.
and not about making money, but somehow that video stood out among designers, architects, interior designers, and it wasn't by my intention at all. It actually took about a year and a half for that video to suddenly just be recommended by the YouTube algorithm. So I
Oh,
had no
wow.
idea that was going to be the case, and I really just wanted to share some of my own experience. I
Yeah.
really didn't think that was going to resonate with people, and apparently, I guess it did.
I believe
So.
that's just very hot topic, especially after COVID, and people just probably looking for new streams of
Mhm,
income.
mhm.
Wow, I didn't
That's in
like
okay,
realize.
I never thought about it because you're right, that video did pop off during COVID, and, maybe
Uh-huh.
designers were
Mm.
looking for other ways to make money because, their job might be impacted or their employment at that
Yeah, because
time.
it feels like COVID actually had a lot of advantages for a lot of people because they
Mhm.
finally had time to sit
Yeah.
and think what they really love to do. Okay, I know a lot of people, they like lost their jobs, and a lot of people, they were redefining their work schedule. And it feels like this was the perfect moment to find you because you share so many insights. Even I was
Mhm,
sitting like with a piece of paper, and I'm like, wow, like I was so inspired. I did like
mhm.
columns of like what I do now, what I could be doing, what I love doing,
Mhm.
and like what
Yeah.
my future like interior architect career might look like,
Mhm.
thanks to the
Yeah.
insights from your video. And probably my biggest insight was that these days you have to have various streams of income. This is so important, not just focusing on one, like not putting all the eggs in one basket,
Mhm.
right? Of being full-time architect.
Well, that's
Yeah.
definitely a different worldview that I
Uh-huh.
resonate with, just because I think my generation or where I am in life, like I think I like to keep busy, not just professionally, but with other things that I find as hobbies. I
Mhm.
think what was interesting and kind of funny to see the comment section of that video of how other people were commenting from their perspective, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of them were. I think the video has a little bit of a misconception because people maybe have seen it or understood it that I did all these things all at once. which
Yes.
might be
Mhm.
misleading, right? I think that's
Mhm.
not, I mean, I definitely didn't do everything all at once. I think what I did was I did one thing that I kind of learned from that experience. I understood a little bit of what I liked, what I didn't like, and then maybe that informed me or prompted me to do something else so that my time wasn't always just like spread very thin. So I think
Yeah.
that's what, I think it's important to read from that video is, it's one thing that led me to a different thing than another thing. But over time, I've tried these things and I found what I liked and what I didn't like and how I
Yeah.
wanted to spend my time and my life energy essentially, whether that's, worth trading it to do, whether it's the art, photography, or illustration. But I definitely didn't do everything all at once. So I wanted to clarify that when people like watch it to have that in mind. It's not like I'm a workaholic and that's certainly not who I am as a person. But it did, all these things were very instrumental in their own ways because if I didn't do, let's say, my side hustle in
Mhm.
rendering or illustration, I wouldn't have developed a skill set to maybe develop client relationship and business development. And if I didn't do my art on Etsy, that wouldn't have I wouldn't have learned how to like deal with customer support and customer service. So there's a lot of meta skills that came
Yeah.
from these side hustles that I think eventually led to what I'm doing now, which is
Mhm.
content creation, teaching in the educational space. There were a lot of skill sets that I borrowed from the side hustles, even including photography. If I didn't learn how to like shoot photos, I wouldn't have developed how to make videos because they
Yes.
kind of go hand in hand. And same with editing.
It reminds me of that famous speech made by Steve Jobs. I believe it's for Stanford University or something,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he told that it was like a lot of dots
Hmm.
during your life that
Yeah.
like your experiences in life, and then you connect these dots,
Hmm.
and this is what leads you to your like path in life, or like to your like ideal career, however we call it, right? So for example,
Hmm.
if Steve Jobs haven't learned calligraphy at some point in life, we
Hmm.
wouldn't have beautiful phones, right? So the
Yeah.
same with you, Henry. If you haven't like learned how to like professionally do architecture photography, we wouldn't probably
Hmm.
have such a beautiful experience while watching your YouTube channel,
Hmm.
because aesthetically watching your videos is just very pleasing aesthetically, because I'm like, wow, he made it so like beautifully, and like the light and the composition,
Thank you.
and I know where it comes from. It's like the roots are in the photography, like knowing like the good color balance, composition, like perspective again, right? So when you
Hmm.
know perspective, you know, like at which angle would be the best like
Yeah.
viewpoint. Wow. So, and I'm wondering how long did it take, like this path? So if we take like a timeline, so for example, you
Hmm.
studied like photography for half a year and then you became a photographer, or is it a linear path, or is it like all about like ups and downs, and
Hmm.
how is it for you?
Not at all. It's definitely not a linear path. In fact, I think it all started much younger than what I can account for in the past 5 to 10 years. I think a lot of these skill set kind of or interests emerged even when I was as early as 10, 12 years old, where my
Uh-huh.
parents would take me to different cities in China to draw. And then that's when I was first exposed to architecture, buildings, and the built environment, even though at the time that wasn't something that I was particularly observing or analyzing. But I think over time it has sharpened my eye and my focus
Mhm.
to see things with certain structure. For example, like composition is definitely one of them. When you're drawing something, you have to think
Yeah.
about what to include, what the
Mhm.
right proportion, how
You
much
do
detail
this,
you
like,
give that.
remember, like,
Exactly. We
you
did this to frame the buildings and
yes.
the art.
Uh-huh.
So I think all these contributed to what I'm doing today. So it's been a long journey, and I definitely wouldn't like prescribe someone and give them some time to develop the skill set. And everyone has different skill sets. in their life. So everyone will go through these thoughts differently than I do to get maybe to where exactly I am today. Um,
Mhm.
so it's definitely not a linear path. And if I were to redo it again, I don't know whether if I can fast track this process to maybe like start content creation. I think I still needed to develop these other skill set in these areas in order to have a more complete palette. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying my palette is complete by any means, but it certainly has provided me with ability to do many things all at once because of my individual experiences in those different areas or side hustles.
Yeah, it's like continuous learning, right? And I believe that we as humans, we are born with some particular talents that are kind
Mhm,
of already in us. And during our life, we can develop some particular skills. And it depends if those skills, they can beautifully interact with those talents or not. Because, for example, you definitely were born with the talent of like artistic, right? Artistic talent, artistic eye, because you have such a beautiful line in your
thank you.
drawings. This is so beautiful and such a high level of detalization. And at the same time, if I look at your drawings, for example, of interior spaces of or architecture, I can see that
Mhm,
you can, at the same time, your strengths are in like quick sketching, so you can very quickly show your idea on paper, and in parallel, you can go deep into details, like with those architectural drawings that you sell on Etsy, right? Because there is
mhm.
such a high level of detalization, and I'm like watching and thinking, like, wow, this is so beautiful, and probably it took Henry like 6 hours at least one drawing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you were born with this artistic talent in you and those skills that you like embraced and learned, and they all like were filling your bucket. And now it feels like, yeah, we can learn so much from you. I know that you are currently very big with your online course. It's just
Mhm,
recently was launched, right?
mhm,
It's on iPad for architects, right? So you teach
mhm. Yeah,
how
I have 2
to
classes.
draw. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
just to piggyback on what you're saying before about like some of the maybe the innate talent that you're referring to. I
Yeah.
mean, you teach
Uh-huh.
a drawing class, and I
Yes.
think we believe maybe in the similar things as drawing is a skill set that
Yeah.
anybody can pick up and improve over time. I don't think I was born with the ability to draw very well. It might seem like that,
Uh-huh. Wow.
but that's because
Okay.
I started drawing when I was 6 years old, so I built my 10,000 hours in the past 20 years, and
Mhm.
I don't consider myself as, the best drawers out there. There's certainly other people like you that and others that draw better than I
True.
do, but, I think whatever I can teach is still a lot more than someone that doesn't really know where to start. So I think it is a skill set that people can really improve on, and I believe that because, like if I were to draw with my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand, it would be very, very bad.
In that video, my four streams of income as an architectural designer, you say that the traditional route of an architect is to work the entire life for good big architectural companies. It's like one of the
Mhm,
traditional routes, right? So you can earn a proper income and save for retirement. And Henry, I'm wondering now in 21st century, how can we redefine this road? Because it is more these days about focusing, it feels to me at least, that it's more about focusing on a
mhm,
personal brand in architecture, about being more creative, like doing something really creative while you're doing
mhm,
your job, right? Just
mhm,
look at those like YouTubers, because it's just interesting to see people's personality, not only what they do, but like
mhm,
how do they do it and who they are and why do they do that. So, what are your thoughts? Because I know you come from Chinese background, and I know that
mhm,
Chinese, Russian, Indian parents,
mhm.
they like
Yeah,
very often force their children like to
mhm,
always have good grades, like finish the education and go do proper job,
mhm,
and like work for good, nice company that it's safe and yeah, it will be your job for life.
Yeah. I think you have a pretty good grasp on the culturally, like the Eastern culture, and I think that would apply to me as well. Like my parents
Mhm.
wanted me to go to good school in the US and then just work, find a good company to work, and maybe one day become a part owner or a owner of my own
Uh-huh.
company. And they've definitely saw me as someone who would just eventually build an architectural practice, and that still may happen. I'm not sure how interested I
Mhm.
am in pursuing that traditional path, but most people would start off with a 9 to 5
Yeah.
job, right? And that's the sort of the standard that we currently have in the our educational system. After graduating, you go get a job, and then maybe when you
Mhm.
have enough experience, you may jump ship or you open your own practice. That's the sort of a career, maybe trajectory that I saw myself in doing, design work. But I think, as you know, like nowadays, there are just so much more options, especially with the pandemic. Like we're beginning to understand what it means to be maybe working part time. So maybe it's
Uh-huh.
not a full time job that we're raised up in doing. And especially we are in an environment we can work remotely. So that is an option that was really not there before the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? And a
Yeah.
lot of us because of this have this interest to pursue self-employment because of
Yeah.
these options that became available to us. So I think you can really, if you want to pursue a little bit non-traditional design career, you can chart out your own path, if you will.
Yeah.
To like me, you can make money online, you can make a passive income, so you can work a lot less and you can spend more time either with family or with other hobbies that you may have or have interest in developing. So I
Yeah.
really think that 9 to 5 job that students are coming out of school, they're expecting, they're not the only way to start a career, although that may still be a smart way to do it because you are going for those experience. And then
Mhm.
so in some ways you're getting paid to learn more, but there's definitely other ways to continue a architecture education, even if you're not doing the design work on a daily practice.
Yeah. And we're all embracing home offices these days because
Yeah,
I
everyone has a
remember,
beautiful home office.
yeah, I remember, so I was trained as an interior architect. I remember I was
Mhm.
studying like for 6 years. And plus, I got my dream job. So I remember
Oh,
when
okay.
I was studying, I was thinking like what my dream job would be like. And I was thinking like it should be a big corporate company and we should be doing like huge state governmental projects. And I got it. So I was hired for this job as an interior architect in a big company. So we were working with big projects like Sochi Olympics. We were doing like hotels, and I found myself crying in the bathroom of this company because I'm like, I found this job. I
Mhm,
was like studying for 6 years and I thought it was my dream job. But when I'm in the experience, I realize that I don't like 9 to 5. I don't like open
mhm,
space offices. I don't like when people tell me what to do. Like I hate this job and I was studying for it
mhm,
like 6 years. I'm like, something is wrong with this matrix. I want to get out of the matrix.
mhm,
And yeah, in these moments, you kind of realize what you really love to do. So I realized that I love to work in my own space. I love to like be my own boss. And I believe like for a lot of probably architects and interior designers and our viewers, this might be an insight that it's not like the end of the world. You can still redefine this construct and you can create your own career. Like look at you, right? You're a YouTuber, you sell on Etsy, and like you an educator, and like you are a residential architect, and you're wearing so many hats and you are balancing all these jobs. And yeah, maybe sometimes by the way, Henry, do you delegate? Do you have like a team because when I
That's a
read
good question.
about
Mhm,
you, I'm like, wow, he probably has like a couple of people on board who probably help him at least with like Etsy shop,
mhm,
because I don't have Etsy yet, at least, but your
mhm,
example inspired me. And I'm thinking that probably like there is like a printmaking process, there is a shipping process. And I'm like,
mhm,
how do you do this? Like it's probably someone else who helps you.
mhm. Yeah, I realized a long time ago that I can't be the only person doing all the things that I'm doing. So
Mhm.
when I was running Etsy at a more higher volume, I did hire out the packaging, the sourcing of the material to someone that I trusted. So he would
Mhm.
be helping me fulfilling the orders, and while I was still creating more artwork.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's less of that. I actually package the own my fulfillment because the volume has gone down a little bit because that's not an area of focus that I wanted to continue. So while I'm
Uh-huh.
still keeping the store open and fulfilling the order, it's something that I could do maybe like an hour a week. And I'm no longer
Uh-huh. Wow.
producing the art anymore. So I have built enough inventory of different cities or subject matter that the
Mhm.
order would just come in, and then I would just need maybe like a less than an hour a week to fulfill the order, ship it
Wow,
out.
that's
So
impressive.
that doesn't
Mhm.
really take a lot of time, but at a certain point there to build up to that kind of a passive way, it did take a while to get
Uh-huh.
there. Now it's more
Smooth.
automatic.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Automatic. Yeah, I believe everything is about automation. And
Mhm.
your current point of focus is probably online courses, right? And
That's right.
education.
Yeah.
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 So you're into this. Can you please tell us more about this course, online course, and what are you teaching in them? Like, is it some particular app
Mhm.
that you're showing? Please tell us
Sure.
more about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the where I really started with the online course and teaching started with my own problems, like my own pain points. So about
Uh-huh.
7 years ago, when I was a young designer and when I was working for different firms, I always struggled to like edit my sketches because I was always very proficient with drawing on
Mm,
paper, but
mhm.
editing, scanning, putting it into Photoshop, making sure things
Yeah.
are like white, erasing the
Uh-huh.
mistakes. Those
Crazy.
kind of like
Yeah.
were kind of wearing me down, and I found it annoying,
It takes a lot
just a
of
little bit.
time, right?
It does take a lot of
It
time.
takes
Yeah,
almost
it
the
takes.
same amount of time as to create this drawing.
Yeah, I think people who draws a lot will understand that process to
Good.
be much less fun than the drawing part. So I
Yeah.
looked into getting a digital tablet, like a Wacom tablet to start with, and
Yes,
that
I
I ended
remember
up,
it.
yeah, those were the early days when before the
Yeah.
iPad. And when the iPad came
Uh-huh.
out, I invested some money into getting an iPad, and the rest is
Mhm.
kind of a history. So I spent a lot of time developing a workflow that I personally enjoyed, that I think others might as well. So when I became very proficient, I started to teach this in the office. When there was enough interest in the office, I
Uh-huh.
advocated to get everyone an iPad in the office,
Mhm.
and I started to teach
Mm.
it within the
Wow.
office. And when COVID started, I wanted to maybe share this online because I thought
Uh-huh.
maybe there were other people interested in learning this stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I realized personally was there wasn't a lot of materials, like educational materials, on teaching how to draw, like specifically on the iPad, and how to
Mhm.
use the softwares for the iPad, designed for the iPad. So I made that my goal to become the resource for others at
Yeah.
first, and just to see if there's anybody that would be interested. So over time, with YouTube is great because it can reach a lot of people organically,
Mhm.
and a
Mhm.
lot of people have shown a lot of interest. So I figure there may be a demand for this. So at a certain point, I made a course, and the course is really everything that I published on YouTube into a more succinct and
Yeah.
concise version of my online tutorials, so that somebody can start from A to Z much quicker as opposed to finding the right video to watch. in
Mhm.
YouTube. So that's where it all originated with the online course and e-learning for me, and
Yeah.
that was really just last year.
Because it feels like you, throughout your life, your work life, you gained so much experience. You kind of established your own workflow, you know, which step is when. And this is,
Hmm.
I know, what a lot of people are looking for, especially like interns or like students of
Hmm.
architecture design universities. They just don't know how to and what when, and sometimes they just need, all they need is that structure, like step one, step two, step three. That's
Hmm.
why I believe online courses are so valuable, because it feels like you give someone your hand and he takes it and he take you through his path step by step, and he shows you do that, and that gives you a blueprint. And you, as an architect or as an interior designer or like a creative from any other walks of life, you can
Hmm.
accomplish your dreams, your goals much quicker compared to when you just watch a bunch of videos on YouTube, and that's the never ending. Of course, it's wonderful, and there is like great work that people do. But what I believe
Hmm.
people look in online courses, number one is this structure. So they have this structure
Right.
in their head, because otherwise there is chaos. There is like chaos of like thoughts and ideas, and you're not sure if I'm doing that right 100%. And when you see that, yes, this guy, he's an architect, he already pursued this path, he knows his thing, he gained a lot of experience, and he can give it in much more concise and compressed knowledge, like essential knowledge that I can really quickly implement. Because at
Hmm.
least with me, a lot of people, they say like, oh god, especially on YouTube, my number one comment is probably, I wish I could draw like you, and or something like, I would never draw like you, Olga, it probably takes like so much time. And like, stop you guys, you know that actually interior drawing, because I'm more into like interior sketching, it's like half of it is 50%, it's mathematics, it's like descriptive geometry, and
Hmm.
50% it's, yes, it's knowing like the techniques, it's well trained hand, these are knowing of the like which materials to go to, whether that's markers, watercolor, or like Procreate, Morpholio, iPad, digital drawing. And I say that actually you can learn it in even like during 1 year. You can become really professional if you do like drawing exercises, because my number one video on YouTube is top 10 exercises to train your hand.
Hmm.
As an architect, interior designer, because people can train their hand really quickly, you know,
Hmm.
it's a skill, it's just another skill, like learning a new dance or learning something new, like
Hmm.
anything in life. Drawing is a 100% it's skill, and you can be zero in drawing and can become pro after
Hmm.
you. I even believe it's not these days even about 1000 hours, as they say. It's about like knowing exactly what to do, when to do, and like be very focused. So I believe these days it's more even about focus, like being laser focused on what you
Hmm.
want to accomplish. And yeah, for example, if I would love to be a residential architect and I would love to draw on iPad, probably I'll go and enroll into your course and like go through all the lessons and practice every single day. And I understand that in 1 year I'll be on a completely different like level, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
what do you
I
talk
agree. I think
about? I feel sometimes that I'm interviewing myself. Sorry.
no, I completely agree with what you said, because the idea
Uh,
of the 10,000 hours, coined by who's the author? You remind me.
oh, some clever guy from internet. I don't remember.
No,
We
I'm
should
blanking
Google
out.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Anyways,
will
the
Google
idea
it.
that
Yeah. Uh-huh.
you need 10,000 hours to become the expert in your field
Yeah.
might maybe true, But I
Mhm.
often tell students that we're not seeking expert level when we
Uh-huh.
are an
Yes.
architect or interior designer. We just need to be proficient enough to communicate our ideas on paper with
It's
the tools
Malcolm
that we
Gladwell,
have.
sorry, it's Malcolm
Yeah, Malcolm
Gladwell.
Gladwell
Yeah,
coined
yeah.
the 10,000
Mhm.
hours.
Yeah,
So we really don't need to be at that extreme
yeah,
of expertise. But oftentimes, if you have just deliberate, focused effort in a year or short period of time, you can reach proficiency much faster. And it's the proficiency and the comfort that most people would need in order to exercise their designs and their ideas to paper. We don't need to be the best person, but often it's the communication part of the bring to the paper to the client.
yeah,
That's what most people are looking for. They're not looking to create stunning renderings, although that might be their dream to do. But most people are not looking for that. They're just looking for proficiency, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, maybe 10,000 hours, it's more for like teachers, right? For people who will teach in future this subject, or if you want to be like really, really good in
Yeah, it's
architectural
expertise.
sketching.
Yeah.
Yeah, in expertise. Yeah. Also, Henry, I remember that I watched your interview with Eric, and I
Yeah.
remember that you were talking. Yeah, it's a wonderful interview. Also, highly recommended for everyone who is watching us now to check it out. I think I'll put the link in the description to it. I remember you were talking about this concept of white space. So essentially, it's like a free time
Hmm.
when you can understand like what to focus on, what do you really want. And I'm wondering, how do you create this free time as an architect? Because sometimes it feels it's like never-ending process. You wake up and
Hmm.
you're like hustle, hustle, hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? How did you like find this time? How did you like realize that I want to do this and focus on that? And like any
Hmm.
insights on that, or like how to avoid
Hmm.
experiencing like creative burnout, which I believe like probably
Yeah.
90% of creatives, if not 100%, experienced at some point.
Yeah, good question. I think architectural designers and interior designers we're living in such a fast-paced industry, and
Hmm.
it's very easy just to be overworked and be exhausted just from work to the work that you
Yeah.
go to. And many of us don't really have the energy to find something else to do. Most of us just wants to relax and just
Hmm.
get through the week or the weekend. If it's the weekend, they should just relax, right? You guys were supposed to do. We're so tired. I think that's where the problem is we're just overworked, most of us, and if we're not careful, we're working more than our 9 to 5 job. And
Hmm.
realistically speaking, most designers are working far more than the 9 to 5 job,
Yes.
right? So I think for me, when I realized I needed to, so at the point where I created white space was not very intentional at
Uh-huh.
first, because when I had a 9 to 5 job as a new graduate, I also worked many weekends and at nights on on side hustles. Like
Hmm.
I was doing visualization and rendering work, and the amount of revenue that came from the side hustle made me realize I could be working a lot less, and I
Hmm.
can be compensating with my additional income from those other from visualization to really make up for what I was lacking if I took a pay cut. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of white space back then because I was working essentially a full-time job and a side job on the side throughout the year. So I realized I could do is I can maybe find a new job that allows me to
Hmm.
work less so that I may be able to build another business on the visualization or the rendering and to build that up so that it can supplement my main
Yeah.
income. Maybe even maybe like supplemented enough where I can work even less and less, which is leading to what I'm doing today. So the idea of creating white space initially was really just to manage my time into freeing up what I was doing full time with that with a side hustle job so that I can do less of the full time. I can build more of the business more and then work even less. So I when I transitioned to a different company, I asked for a 4-day work week, which allowed
Yeah.
me to work a 32
Yeah,
hours
that's
from
very
Monday to
smart.
Thursday, and then I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday to build a new business or just to explore, dream, and experiment. That's when I had the time to build an Etsy store. Was I had this, you
Uh-huh.
know, 5 to 8 hours
Friday's
a week,
hustle. Yeah, Friday we can
right?
hustle.
I had this time to do it, and the rendering work I was still doing at the time, but they're not consistent. So they'll come like in waves, and then it'll be
Yes.
very quiet. So the quiet
Mhm.
times I'll be doing something else. I'll be experimenting with something else. But you definitely need the space to kind of try things. So
Yeah.
if anybody's like looking to create these white spaces, I think you have to take some calculated risk. You know, it's not just you're not gonna be able to find that time out of nowhere because we only have the weekend, the evenings after a 9 to 5. And unless you're very determined and disciplined, I think it's very hard to carve out additional time to try out these new
Yeah.
things. So I actually think most people will need to, need to make a little bit sacrifice either from their full-time job or to do less of other things to make the space so that they can be creative in whatever they want to do. But we all have the same constraint, 24 hours in a day. So I made some sacrifice in the beginning because I was single and I could live off a lower wage so that
Mhm.
I can, put this time and investment into something else. But
Yeah.
that's really dependent on a person's needs at that time.
I remember, yeah, in your video, you mentioned that you discussed it with your director of the company if you can
Mhm.
have Fridays off. And I'm like, wow, that's really smart decision because not everyone even can come up with this idea. And that's a really great hint because what I see, at least when I was working as an interior architect, I remember that very often we stayed overtime.
Mhm.
Sometimes even some people, when there was a very strict deadline, because it was a big governmental project, and some people had to stay overnight, even overnight.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, you guys, not overnight for me, definitely. I'm out of this game. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just remember when I was like right, driving back home, I'm like people don't have any free time, and that's really big problem, and they don't
Mhm.
even realize that it's a huge problem that they simply don't have time, this essential time to think, because you are
Mhm.
right that we are live in such a fast-paced world with lots of social media, and we have to create this time off. Like for you, Fridays are were all about like what you want to do next, right? For me,
Mhm.
sometimes it's usually Thursdays because this is the day of my abstract art painting. So I'm like, this is
Mhm.
my creative day when I can do nothing in terms of my like job, my teaching job, and I can do whatever I want to go to spa, go
Mhm.
to like do abstract art. Sometimes I also find that going on the social media detox is very essential because it kind of
Mhm.
creates, because sometimes it feels like, yes, you're right that we all have the same amount of time, like 24 hours a day, ideally eight
Mhm.
hours sleep, ideally.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
what I see that our perception of time is different because there are so many thoughts in just 1 second that happened in our head, and we should lessen this amount of thoughts and we should increase the amount of focus. So maybe be that like going on a low information diet. I know
Mhm.
some people in America, especially, they go and live in a van. So they go, and
Mhm.
that way they're
Yeah.
kind of away from Wi-Fi. They're away from people, and they shouldn't be like paying for their rentals and for like, so they are like living on a super strict budget, and this way they are like creating like good savings account, and they create space in their mind. So
Mhm.
maybe for you guys who are watching this video, idea of like Henry talking about creating one day only for what you want to do.
Mhm.
Or like in my case, I know that for me personally, like social media detox, low information diet, and like meditations,
Mhm.
they're huge because they kind of create space in between my thoughts, because I'm
Mhm.
like this kind of anxious creative person who wants everything to be quick and like thousands of thoughts per second
Mhm.
happening in my head, and I know that I want to stretch this space in between thoughts and just do
Mhm.
think about nothing.
Mhm.
And from that nothingness, usually the most brilliant ideas come up. For
Yeah.
example, like interviews, I was like like on in spa, I believe. I was just massage spa
Mhm.
and like, oh, I really want to do interviews. That would be so cool. So this is incredible.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's pretty awesome. Yeah, I know
yeah.
the things that we often have building ideas about. They don't come just sitting on a desk. They come in the weirdest moments,
Yes.
like from the shower. That's when people get a lot of ideas. On a run, maybe, but like on doing something totally
Yeah.
unrelated to work. These are the moments that I think I had some of my best ideas. And how are you gonna have these moments if you're always like working or you're too tired to think? You
Yeah.
just want to watch TV at night. And on the weekends, you may have like friends and family,
Yeah.
obligations to attend to. So I do think it takes a lot of sacrifice either on on your sleep, on the amount of work you can do, or on family and friends or
Yeah.
or children, right? So it has to come from somewhere, and I think that's the part where we are kind of like the architect of our own life, right? We can design our
Yes.
life in a way
By the
where
way, yes.
that might fit your needs, but I think too few people are thinking about it like that because they see work as a fixed constraint, and then I don't think it's like that anymore. I think the idea of 9 to 5 is while
Is
it's
dead.
prevalent,
Yeah.
but it's not dead. But there's room to negotiate. There's room to be flexible, especially in the current environment, like the post-pandemic environment, where we have a lot more leverage to not be in office for 5 days,
Yeah.
40 hours a week.
By the way, in New Zealand here, officially, they are thinking about introducing 4 days work week. And this is like official. No, that's true. They just did a bunch of research and they realized that you guys, we see this 5 work days like results and 4 work days results, and
Hmm.
like people performing much better in everything with 4 days
Yeah.
work week. That's incredible. And I believe
Hmm.
COVID also showed us that we are social creatures, right? So we need
Hmm.
this socialization. We can't do like 9 to 5 and then weekends with like binge watching Netflix on our own.
Hmm.
We want
Yeah.
to go out, like interact with people. The same, even with drawing. I remember back in 2011, I got my first Wacom, my company. They're
Hmm.
like, Olga, this is for you. Please just draw. And I remember, so with Wacom, for those of you who are like in their like 20s and don't know what Wacom is, so with the Wacom, what you do, you like draw on the Wacom and you look on your screen. And this is like,
Yeah.
oh, the weirdest thing to do. You got used to it, of course. But I'm like, I'm hating this Wacom thing.
Hmm.
But I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't, didn't want to upset my like director that I hate the thing that he just presented me. He's like, Olga, I know you love drawing. This is for you. And I'm like, okay, I should do something with it. And I learned like how to draw when you're watching on the screen. And
Hmm.
when Apple Pencil and iPad came, like everything changed. So
Yeah.
because when you are in a computer program or when you're interacting with computer, you kind of switching to another like hemisphere of your brain into more analytical, and you're not creative anymore, and you're just processing a lot of information. I remember
Mhm.
again that day when I just deleted 3D Studio Max from my computer. I believe that was one of the happiest days of my life, because how many tears there were, because like file broken, like, and
Mhm.
you were rendering it all night, and like all those presets, all those V-rays. I'm like, I'm free, I'm free. Yeah, because you just go into completely different, and you become more creative. And this is such a beautiful idea, Henry,
Mhm.
that you just shared. We are architects, right? So we are like designers. Why don't we become architects of our life? So it's
Mhm.
about like the same idea, like you
Yeah.
create something out of the idea, just an idea from your head. And maybe this idea can be, how do I create my ideal job or my dream job, my dream income? This is also
Mhm.
architectural process. So you can simply like move those skills from architecture onto building your like a blueprint for your like life, for your
Mhm.
work. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is so beautiful. I remember in
Yeah.
one of sketching retreats, it was Archimentors back then. There was a man, an architect, Carlo Enzo, and he's working in New York, I believe, in America, at least for
Okay.
sure. And I remember he was teaching a class on like draw something like along the lines of drawing spontaneous architecture. So he was drawing on like pen and paper and then on iPad, and he was creating all those like angular layouts, and then he was kind of making 3D structures out of it. And it looked like it's completely spontaneous. So it looked like it's absolutely non-linear, ir- ir- irrational. But
Mhm.
when you look at his final works, at his like residentials, his villas, they're exactly like that. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. It feels like this idea, it's like so irrational. And then you can see that he's walking in this villa, like million, like something like $1 million
Mhm.
villa. And you're like, and this came from this like piece of paper,
Yeah.
and like, how this is incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very hard to ideate on the computer with
Yeah.
softwares, and I believe ideas and visions are all born on the paper, and drawing on the iPad is simply to me it's an extension of that paper when that paper isn't
Yes.
available or isn't very convenient. I had this struggle or belief that drawing on the iPad would be different than how I would think about designing on real paper. But
Mhm.
once I started to become proficient with the tools, with Procreate or Morpholo Trace, that hasn't really become an issue. Like I can ideate and test my design just as fast, if not
Mhm.
faster, with all the benefits of drawing
Mm.
on the screen. So to me, drawing on iPad is the same as drawing on paper. I might not be able to achieve certain texture with like watercolor or pencil.
Yeah.
uh, the design process, the thinking process is no different to me. Unless you're not very proficient with the tools, then you'll struggle with you'll be stuck with the technical tools, and you're not gonna be able to be as fluid with
Yeah.
drawing and designing. But that hasn't been a case with me, and I think that's the area that I want to make people realize is you can do all this, on a device that you can take anywhere with you and be creative more often than needing a desk to draw on or a notebook.
Yeah. By the way, talking about like apps for iPad, like you've
Yeah.
already mentioned Morpholia and Procreate. And
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, Henry, which apps do you use for different aspects of residential projects, such as like design, drafting, presentation, and maybe among those apps, which app
Mhm.
do you find most effective for your architectural drawings, and why? And which one would you recommend for newcomers to architectural industry?
I don't know. I don't think I'm the best person to recommend softwares because
Mm.
I'm pretty old school, in a way where I still use AutoCAD, and I think students coming out of school shouldn't be using AutoCAD. They should be investing their time into a BIM software
I
because
also use AutoCAD. I know David is
it's
using
yeah,
ArchiCAD probably.
ArchiCAD, yeah, ArchiCAD or Revit is something that they're pushing
Yeah.
out of school. But
Yes.
I think it's also because I have help. So when you mention like delegation, I
Yeah.
rarely draft myself because that's not where my time is most well spent. So there are a lot of talented designers all around the world, architects, interior designers that can help you draft if you can competently show them like a design on the iPad that they can understand and
Hmm.
produce the 3Ds and the 2Ds based on your drawing. And that's
Yeah.
what I've personally been using in my own work is relying on more talented designers in the technical areas to
Yeah.
help me produce these documentations because I also just really hate drafting myself. I find it
Yeah.
not creative and just quite time consuming. So at a certain point in anyone's life, if you're trying to, I guess, move up the ladder, you're gonna find yourself away from spending most of your time documenting or drafting the design. Right, you're gonna be doing more high level
Yeah.
design stuff. If you're the designer in the office, you're not going to be drafting a lot. So I think having the developing the hand drawing skill can go a lot in someone's career if they want to move in a design career or trajectory, right? As opposed to someone who may be more interested in the technical things, developing details and inspecting drawing sets. There are people like that. That's not where I see myself if I stay in a corporate kind of environment.
Yeah. I believe that's very smart, especially taking into account our era of AI, because it
Yeah.
feels like you can delegate a lot to AI. Or with me, yeah, I also, since I realized that I completely hate working with like rendering on computer in like
Mhm.
sort like 3D Studio Max, even though it's like a beautiful program and a lot of people are much more talented than I am. And I just
Mhm.
started also delegating. I was looking, I believe, on Fiverr, yeah, for like
Mhm.
people who love doing that,
Yeah.
and yeah, just yeah, delegating
Mhm.
like drafting also, and focusing on your strengths, on like what you do best, and delegate the
Right.
rest, as they say, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. I found I think I found my some of the best talents on Upwork
Uh-huh.
in places like Serbia, and in more of a, I guess, very fluent in English in more of the Eastern European countries. I found a lot of very talented individuals who are willing
Mm,
to work in different time zones
yeah,
with me, and they can do everything super well as long as they are supported with good internet and they're like
yeah.
fluent in English. They're more experienced, more trained than I am. So I found myself, you know, trusting the people like outside of my own country even more than I do, here.
That's so interesting because nowadays we can like build our team all
Hmm.
around the globe, right? So
Right.
people who can help you and can like really benefit the project, they can be living anywhere like India,
Yeah.
China, America, Brazil, New Zealand, and that this
Yeah.
is incredible because I remember when I was a student, we felt those borders. We didn't like have much opportunities to like order something from people like from Philippines or
Hmm.
like something. But now with internet, with Fiverr, or what do you use, by the way, Henry, to find like people who can
Good
do
question. So
drawings, draft?
yeah, I use a platform called Upwork, and
Upwork.
it's Upwork. Yeah, it has a lot of candidates on there. You can search and you can see their ratings and the recommendations
Yeah.
and the experience level. Fiverr is also another alternative, although I think
Hmm.
they tend to be on the more cost-effective side of things. And yeah, I don't use Fiverr as much, but if it wasn't for today, like living in the world today, my team of I have a I have a team of like I have a marketing agency that's kind of like that's based in Croatia and
Uh-huh.
the
Wow.
UK, and I
Uh-huh.
have a ad agency here in the US that's based in uh, South California, so they're not local here,
Yeah.
and my video editor is based in the Philippines.
Wow.
So they work in different time zones, and we make it work very well. So it's incredible
Yeah.
and so beautiful that because of the Zoom and the
Hmm.
internet, the reach and the level of collaboration that you can have with somebody else on the other side of the world is just like incredible. Like I'm speaking to you in different seasons
In
is
different
very
days,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
because it's Monday. I know it's Monday afternoon in San Francisco. It's already almost, yeah, 11 a.m. in New Zealand. Tuesday. It's with different seasons, days. It's
yeah,
incredible.
very weird.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Henry, which advice would you give to emerging architects in today's rapidly changing industry? I know this
Mhm.
question is sitting on
Yeah,
my question list for
yeah.
you, and we've already touched upon this topic quite a lot. But maybe if
Mhm,
you could summarize or like do in
mhm.
essence, like if someone like an architect would come to you and like, Henry, which one like which one advice would you give me? What it would be?
Um,
I know that's
I
tricky.
would just say,
Oh,
like,
okay,
if
like
you want to, if someone is an emerging designer, they're coming out of school, and then they see
yes.
what I'm doing, and they're really interested in where I am at this stage of the career with content creation and being a designer, and have these different other businesses. I think the best place is just to try things out and see
Mm,
what works for them. I think I've learned a lot of lessons just from trying different things and see what you like, because what you thought you liked may not be what you like when
yeah.
you start to do it more and more often. So all the side hustles that I've done, there's not many that I actually do nowadays just because I don't think either I enjoy them as much as I thought I would, or that's not a good use of my time.
Hmm.
And you won't know until you try them. So I think especially someone in their early 20s, from 20 to 30, that's the time when they can try a lot of things, make
Yeah.
some mistakes, and most of all, learn from those mistakes so that when you are ready to settle, if you will, into
Yeah.
doing more focused pursuit, you've already done these other things so that you can be more focused and you have the experience so that you can really serve in a more meaningful way. And I think what I do and what you do is all about serving a larger community of
Yes.
either designers or people.
Hmm.
That we have a certain skill set that I think brings a lot of value to somebody else. And I think you're not going to know what that value is if you don't make that 10 years or 5 years experience. Because really, anyone that comes out of school is going to have this expertise. This expertise is going to be developed over time, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
really think
definitely. Hmm.
try things out, find what works, what you like, and then find a way to deliver those value to somebody else. Maybe if you're a teacher like we are, to
Hmm.
teach somebody else how to draw. And that's where I shine, I think, more than being
Hmm.
a designer in a company. I'm a good designer. I can design very competently, but there are also thousands of, not hundreds of thousands of designers that can basically take my job any
Yeah.
day. But I don't think there's a
Hmm.
lot people that can do what I do in an online world, that can teach, that can produce, that can write in the way that I do, in the style that I do. And those all
Yeah.
comes from all these mistakes and experiences I've had in the different side hustles, if you will, over the years. So that's I think my advice. You know, it's a long advice, but I
Yeah.
think that's what
No,
I would.
that's such a wonderful advice, and I would love to hear it when I was like a student, a third grade, because it feels that nowadays, well, usually it takes like 5, 6 years, right, for an architect to like be trained as an architect. But in our like super fast-paced society, I believe the most important is to go and try things in practice. And what I see that people who are not afraid to do those mistakes, because very often we are trained like by
Mhm.
our like family society to be like a good boy or a good girl who never makes a mistake, because at least I remember that like people always expected like to be like a good girl, to have always good grades and never do those mistakes. But actually these are the mistakes that can give you freedom and future, and
Mm.
you can learn a lot from those mistakes. And I remember each time I did a mistake that I thought it was a mistake, but like from this perspective where I am now, I see that that was the pivotal moment, and that was not a mistake, but it was the best lesson that I
Mhm.
needed for me to be where I am right now. Because now I really love what I do. I really love teaching, and I wouldn't know that my nature is like to be a teacher as well, a teacher and an artist, because I believe otherwise I would be still sitting in this corporate job doing those like AutoCAD and sometimes hand rendering maybe, and like hating on 3D Studio Max. And
Yeah.
yes, getting my like 4,000 like USD salary, and at the same time like hating my job and going to therapy and like saying
Mhm.
like I hate my job. And yes, so you guys go do mistakes, learn from them, and especially, right, like Henry told you, that before you are settled, because I know a lot of like young people will watch us who don't have currently families, because believe us, when you have families and small children, it's like a brand new ball game you're in, and that's completely
Mhm.
different.
Yeah,
It's
you
just,
have even
yeah,
less white space.
you just think like, where can I find this extra hour to sleep? Like you're constantly sleep
Yeah.
deprived. Yeah, so go do things like Eric says in his YouTube,
Mhm.
like go do things, and
Go make
we
things.
say
Yeah.
like go do mistakes, and believe that these are not mistakes in future. These are the best lessons that
Yeah.
will eventually lead you to your like however you would love to call it, like dream life, ideal career path, dream job, whatever. But
Mm.
that will basically make you happy, and you will be doing what you really love to do, like with all your heart. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I can. Yeah, I think it's, you know, between you and I think it's so hard to have the time to make mistakes sometimes, even like
Yeah,
we're parents now, right?
yeah.
And you know, if we have time, we would rather sleep than to try something new
Yes.
now. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely,
For me,
definitely.
I think it's hard to find the white space now. I'm just trying to
Hmm.
do what I can. I'm often trying to do the minimal amount of work so that I
Hmm.
can still grow the business and make money. Like I'm not trying to, whereas like in my early 20s, I was trying to maybe make this one thing perfect and spend
Yeah,
too much time on it. And it's like there's no return on that investment, but just because I liked it. There's very little of that now as parents, and as business
yeah.
owners, like every single time that I spend needs to be intentional, much more intentional, because we just don't have that time now.
Yeah, and probably the thing that you can like schedule in future, right? For example, or not schedule, but scale. The thing that's scalable. This is like sleep deprivation sign when you are looking for a word, and
Yeah.
you, yeah, scalable things like online course. It's a scalable thing. Doing
Mhm.
like even sketch commissions. right? I love doing the sketch commissions, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm realizing, yes, I'm doing this like 3 hours. I'm putting 3 hours, but like I'm paid for it, but this time will not come back to me. Whereas while I'm recording a tutorial for YouTube or for my online course, I
Mhm.
realize that this 1 hour or 3 hours, they will impact me through my entire life, probably, or at
Yeah.
least a couple of years. It's a completely different attitude when you like work in the business or you work on your business and you're kind of above and you're looking on what you overall like what you're doing and which thing has like the biggest potential and
Mhm.
maybe the one which is like a low hanging fruit, as they say, that you can accomplish with a focused like time and attitude, and you do it and it's done and it can bring you money. So this is a
Yeah.
brand new like approach, I believe,
Yeah.
that yeah, we are embracing.
Obviously, we
So
both know content is important. Having
yes.
having content and exposure out there in the world, and we're building
Yeah.
these assets that are evergreen, right? So that we can anybody can
Yes.
see it anytime that they want, and you'll
Yeah.
grow your personal brand. My personal brand will continue to grow over time. So
Yeah.
we're definitely creating scalable and things that will last, hopefully forever.
Yeah, like a legacy. So yeah, you guys definitely check out Henry's video because he talks there also about passive and active streams of income. The video, remember you I've mentioned like the name is My Four Streams of Income as an Architectural Designer. So I'll put the link below. And Henry, where like do we find you online? What's the best place for us to check out like your work?
Yeah,
Um,
it's easy. If it's on YouTube, it's just youtube.com and then backsplash Henry Gao, my name,
Henry
Henry
Gao.
Gao.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then it will lead you to my page.
Yeah. So your YouTube. I also, by the way, I also loved your website, and your Instagram, of course. And I really love your website that it looks so simple. And at the same time, it's very good navigation. And you can see that this site was built by an architect because it's like minimalistic and you're not get overwhelmed with like flying cats or like something. And it's like very architecturally clean and aesthetically beautiful website. So my recommendation also check out Henry's website and
Thank
Instagram.
you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. Please give us a like and leave your comments below. Ask your questions because we can do maybe another Zoom session with Henry. If you have a lot of questions, we will be happy to like answer and to help you guys. So please check out the comment section, ask your questions, connect with us, and thank you for watching. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Olga. This has been a pleasure.